Okay, it's World Oceans Day, and I'm with my good pal Cyrill from Parley. How you doing, my
Hey,
friend?
I'm good. I'm good. I mean, confinement, 2 months now, nearly three, I guess.
Yeah,
Wild days. Everything is changing. I guess that's how it feels when things transform.
I know. And you know, again, we take our hats off to those people on the COVID front line, and God, Black Lives Matter. I think you know. In fact, I remember you and I were both reading the book Real Player One at the same time. We
We
both
did.
like science fiction stories, and now feel we're like living one, some strange apocalypse.
It is
But
true, and it's still discussing things that should be so normal.
yeah,
I think that's
well,
the point. It's
yeah,
just interesting. Different is interesting. New is interesting. Curiosity is what drives us as human. I feel,
yeah,
and we are all explorers. I mean,
yeah.
you know that better than anyone, but I think end of the day, it's about just being human and being one species and making sure that we behave towards all these other species of the planet
Well, that's right.
in a good way.
But it's scary because if we can't have the compassion we want for each other, what is the likelihood we're going to have for the compassion for the wild world?
Very little. And that's the problem. And in a way, I hope that this big mission of like securing our future could be this unifying moment,
Yeah,
where in the beginning it creates a lot of fear for people. And they are like, oh my God, and they're reacting aggressive. And I never saw so much aggression than in these days, but also
yeah,
love. It's a very interesting and intense moment. But I hope that this big cause, this big riddle that we have to solve pretty much in the next 10 years of letting all these exploitative and harmful business practices go, and I'm talking especially materials like toxic stuff,
yeah.
um, that could easily, it should easily unite us because it's
Yeah.
such a big mission. It needs all of us.
I hope so, because it seems to be breaking us up at this point. You know, you and I have known each other since, I think, 2012,
Yep.
2013.
Yeah.
In a
When we just
while.
started.
A lot of water under that bridge. And you know, you're in trouble today, mate, because I've got a bunch of questions I've never asked because we're always too busy at events. But so let me ask you this. Did you start your career like in the fashion industry in Germany, or what's your sort of origin story there?
So I, as also Leah, my partner, we come from the brand and design, but more like communication design background. But then we like switched very quickly into also product design because you don't want to just communicate things. You don't want to just create the house, the brand, and the being of something. You also want to really be down to the detail and create something tangible. And therefore, at some point, we just more or less touched all these different areas of creating, be it events, be it big strategies for brand launches and relaunches. And that allows us now to understand all these different areas that these companies are engaging in.
But it's interesting because I think you and I have a similar thing there. We both actually came from the for-profit world. My for-profit world wasn't that successful, but it doesn't matter. At least I had that fundamental, you know, business background. But again, I actually came to the States on vacation. I mean, did you come here on a project or?
No, we were like, we made a decision, and at some point we said, yeah, we want to go to America in a way. That's it. And actually, Leah was driving me here. And she was like saying, you know what? Let's do this. Let's risk it. Let's go for it. And it was a big leap of faith, I think. We arrived here, and you never feel prepared enough for the city,
Right.
this beast. And New
Yeah, yeah,
York confronts you with yourself. It's like this place that really shouts into your face, oh, who are you? What do you do here now? We have already so many good people.
yeah.
And I think that was what, in a way, totally calmed us because we were like,
Right,
oh my God, here's like so much to find.
right, right. You grab the bull by the horns, as it were. And but it seems to me you've come from an industry that isn't a collaborative industry. But everything you've done, the whole vision you have behind Parley of disparate, you know, groups that never typically do work together and get them to work together. I mean, our group is Ocean Alliance, but our vision was just really getting marine organizations to work together. And I love the fact that you've had, you know, artists, scientists, you know, chemists, you know, runners.
We looked at it, we felt like, what would we be if we want to drive change? And we said, let's be a collaboration network, you know, and let's start with the creative industries. But for us, the creative industries really includes the scientists also, you know, like the explorers that are in the labs, but also out there. Because I think if you connect art, design, and all these other layers of the creative industry, you create reality and you drive technology in a very different way, you know. And if you connect technology with design in the right moment, you explore it in a different way, in a very, I would say, applied way, and you also challenge each other's, then you come to true innovations and you come to new ways of thinking even product. And we call that product fiction, you know. So Parley is really structured in these 4 pillars: education and communication, direct impact, going out there, protecting animals, and then material science as a bottom. And on the right side, product fiction. That means, how can you apply new technologies?
Well, I love that, application of new technologies. You know, it's nice, of course. Yeah, but you know, the theme for this World's Oceans Day is actually innovation for a sustainable ocean. So
yep,
I seem to have some innovation in my background, but that's okay. But that's okay. So I don't know. I still don't know how you managed to keep it all together with sort of Pharrell Williams over here, and you know, it seems to me, and I'm going to be tough now, not to you, but you and I meet sort of millions of people or thousands of people or hundreds of people that sort of love the idea, but aren't really willing to commit, aren't really willing to change their lives. And as you know, I think they say to adopt any new change, you sort of got to keep doing it for 2 weeks, and getting somebody to do something new for 2 weeks or a month or for the rest of their life, hopefully, is tough. And I will admit, and it's against my British heritage here to be polite to people, you know that. But I think you've done an amazing job at not only sort of exciting people, but engaging them for the long run. And I know it is all about the long run, but keeping people's attention and keeping them focused is tough.
I think you have to kind of have a very clear goal for a long run, and you have to be extremely vocal about it. But you also shouldn't overthink it. You have to have a rough strategy. And for us, it's Parley Air, avoid, intercept, redesign. That's the strategy that we came up with as a formula to end current materials, and especially plastic and marine plastic pollution as an effect of it. So avoid plastic, intercept plastic, and redesign the material itself. And what you want to do is, when you have this kind of a big ambition, you want to break it down into like smaller installments, and say, what can I achieve in 5 years? It's very, very hard to lose yourself in these long time windows and to say, oh, in 10, 15, 20 years, we should be there. Because that often means that you don't feel accountable for it yourself. You know, and I think what we have to do really is to say, I'm going to say something here now. I'm going to provoke myself. I'm going to take a stand. And you know what? I'm going to deliver against that. And when we're coming back 5 years later, then we actually have something in our hand that happened. And we're not looking back and saying, oh my God, where did all this time go? We didn't achieve anything. And this is often what happens with these big timelines, like 2030, 2048. They're not real. So they're so abstract. They're so far away, you know? And I think it's very important to make it very tangible and to say, you know what, this next chapter we're doing like this, you come with me or I come with you. And I think that is the formula, that you are breaking it down to chunks that people can own for themselves and form for themselves.
I love it. I love it, because you and I have discussed this, but America's first environmentalist was a guy called Henry David Thoreau. And Thoreau said, we do not associate the idea of antiquity with the oceans as we do the land. And he's basically saying, you know, we've got an invisible problem. I will be going down to my office later today, and I will look out over the oceans, and they will look the same as they did potentially from the surface 20 years ago. So engaging people with this invisible problem. Now, I will say, you know, I look at a lot of your videos. You like using whales in your videos. I mean,
Love whales.
well, I know you love whales, but
I think we share that whale, even if you're hiding that turtle behind your head.
I got a turtle there. Yeah, I mean, maybe I should sit over here a bit. Maybe
No, yeah, it's
anyway. Okay,
both space, you know.
but
Yeah,
I got to get the
about to meet and to communicate.
I got to get the Parley brand there, but it's interesting, mate. The charismatic megafauna. I mean, to me at least, what we've done successfully with projects like Snotbot is getting the listening. You know, people are so bombarded. You know, I've got an 19-year-old daughter who's, you know, getting a tweet every 20 seconds. So how do you get the listening? And I think whales do it well. I think branding clearly does it well. But, you know, do you feel we're winning here? Are we getting people's attention? Clearly not now during the current crisis, but do you think we're winning?
I think we are losing drastically right now, and we lost before in a rapid speed, but we want when it comes to damage and life, but we're winning when it comes to understanding and where people really feel that something big has to happen. And what we want also is imagination, I think. With COVID-19, with like everything what's happening now, it's a chain reaction of where we see suddenly the big things, the impossible looking things, they are suddenly happening. You know, you can stop things if you want to, and you can deploy big measures. You can tell people to stay at home for a while. I mean, you know that better than anyone because you are listening into DC and you see the consequences. But I think this bare idea of drastic change was something people couldn't imagine a year ago, couldn't imagine 3 months or 4 months or 5 months ago, you know, and I think that's changing. And I also think though, right now, people are like in a very weird place. You know, we have been confined and now we are like full of emotions and fears. And I think we are running through a very interesting remodulation process right now. And some react to that with like the most positive and others react with the most negative feelings. But so it's a very, I would say, transformative moment in time in human history.
Well, it is particularly because of that global aspect. You know,
event. We are experiencing things now as one global event. And I think that is what we have to kind of carry over to climate change and to the oceans and to say, in the next 10 years, we have to actually save the oceans.
Yeah.
What does that mean, 10 years? And we can't really afford to fight against each other and tell each other who's better, because 10 years is not a lot of time. You know, I mean, we started Parley 8 years ago and we focused on a few causes, but plastic was the main cause. And I would say we put like a little crack now into this material where people start like mistrusting it. They're skeptical about it, but we didn't end it. You know, like 8 years is a lot of time it feels, but then it's not. And I think we have to look at that also and say, how can we use these 10 years the best possible way?
Yeah. And hopefully, to your point, one will get sort of a mindset change, you know, that we've gone through because of COVID-19. But it's, man, it's a challenge because certainly I've worked and we've worked together, unfortunately, to the level of human self-interest. And that is the thing that surprises me most. You know, people just don't seem to get, you know, unhealthy oceans will be bad for you. Pollution is bad for you. Do you know what I mean? And I don't know, will COVID help bring this home, that we can work together and you know, it is in our own self-interest. I mean, you and I have used a couple of times this idea of 2 out of every 3 breaths come from our ocean. But as you know, Ocean Alliance now, we're really pushing healthy whales, healthy oceans, healthy humans, you know? So
yeah, it's a good question. That across? Ian. It's a good question, Ian. And I think there's something inbuilt in us right now that says, we want back to nature. We have been too long in these rooms. And I think honestly, right now, the only way really out of this is to the streets, you know, but we're not going to the woods. And I think there's a deeper desire in us, and we want to be in peace. We want to have sun in our face. We want to smell. We want going to live. And
Yeah.
everybody has that desire. I think it's a built-in desire to be in balance, to be exposed to nature. And everybody should have that opportunity to go to nature and go into the water and see life underwater. And unfortunately, has for a long time been either a subject for media channels, that you see the oceans on a screen or ideally in a dome.
Yeah.
And only a few people really were able to go down and dive and find life down there and probably even make friends, you know, but being excited for that universe. And then you got the astronauts that are getting with their overview effect, this like full concept of the planet. And they're understanding it's actually planet ocean, you know. And I think there are different layers how we can connect people to the sea. But it starts, I think, with like true education, you know. It should start in schools. I think it should be mandatory in every class, you know. And then also educating leaders of companies, today's leaders and tomorrow's leaders. I think that's the big approach here. And because tomorrow's leaders have, even if they're today 12, 15, 20 years old, and you would think, oh, they don't have a say. They actually do have a say. They're loud. They use their voice. They're also going to their parents and asking for things, demanding things, asking the right questions, you know. And that is, I think, very, very important.
Yeah, I mean, 2 points come to me out of that. The first one is, you know, I'm clearly a very lucky guy, and you've come with me on a couple of trips. You should come on a few more. But
you live the perfect life, Iain.
Well, it ain't bad. It ain't bad. There are a couple of bumps.
In the face.
There's a couple of bumps in the road. Well, actually, we almost shouldn't go there. But you know, people are talking about sort of airborne and how far apart we should be and all this type of stuff. And I'm like, hey, you're talking to an expert on airborne snot. You know, I've made a career out of it. But anyway, going back a step, I will say, for me at least, I've had an opportunity to go out on the oceans over the last month. Okay. And I know we've heard these stories around the world of nature rebounding back and responding to, dare I say, the absence of man. And I think it's been very exciting. It's exciting, but scary. It's exciting because we're showing that, you know what I mean? If we cut these animals a bit of slack, do you know what I mean? They're ready to come on back. And for me, at least as a scientist, you know, data is all about context. And rarely can you go back sort of 10 years and look at what the oceans were like in the absence of man. And in many ways, acoustically, we've been doing that recently. And as you know, we've got a study looking at whales off Gloucester, off Alaska, off Iceland. And the oceans have been noisy. And again, I'll send you and Parley some more clips and you can put them up. But I don't know what's going on. I don't know if there's a party going on down there or if this is just normal and we've never heard it before. But it has been an amazing wildlife opportunity. But going back to sort of what you're saying, are we going to be able to use this as like a tipping point to have people better understand sort of the value of the wild world?
Before I answer that, I would like to say, I'll ask you a question actually. Was it surprising for you to listen in, to kind of put your ears into the water and experience that concert? I mean, was it different, way different?
Well, it was different because I've never really had an opportunity before, because if I put it in before, all I heard were boats. You know, I mean, and just so you know, a lot of these boats, you don't realize, but the big boats or the big propellers, when they put it into gear, you get awful cavitation noise. So now, again, we could do another whole hour here, but I think the whale's brain, to me at least, are just these giant acoustic computers. So we've got to be careful not to do anthropomorphic behaviors and presume that they are affected by sound as we are. But it really was exciting. And I tell you, even when I put the hydrophone in, I was wearing a little headphone and I was going, wow, wow. My crew were like, what? And so the next trip I had to bring out a speaker so everybody could listen what was going on beneath us. And it was pretty crazy, you know? And who knows? I don't know if, I mean, we may learn, we need another 1 hour chat just about this, but let's go back a step and talk about education and talk about one of my favorite components, which is the Parley Ocean Schools. I mean, was that part of the original plan there?
Yeah, I think what we learned, what we always tried to do was to kind of replicate that moment that brought us to the sea. And my moment, and then also Leia's moment, was that meeting Captain Paul Watson, you know, and being exposed to this man who like dedicated his life since he's 13 years old to protect animals, and is like full of knowledge and adventure and stories. And meeting him and learning that the oceans would die, and as a legacy of our lifetime, you know, that would be the one thing that we leave behind, that planet, that sea, shocked us, you know, and we wanted to be part of this. And I think what we're trying to do is, since then, is to replicate that and say, why would not everybody have this moment where they actually see, you know what, whoa, there is something happening and I could actually change that. And I think everybody needs a mission, you know, everybody is out there to have a mission, and is looking for a mission. And I think going down there or protecting the sea is a beautiful mission, you know, and the best way of doing that is creating an environment, creating this moment where you learn from people, that you probably only see on television otherwise. And be it that you're a kid and you suddenly have a scientist that speaks to you as if you are an adult, because probably you even understand more than most of the adults.
That's right.
This whole like idea that you have access to knowledge and it's packaged for you in a way that you can decide how deep you want to go in, and it inspires you, and there's a diversity that you can pick like from a menu, that which alley do you want to take. And I think this moment of orientation is Parley Ocean School.
Well, I know.
We're doing it for kids, we're doing it for adults, we're doing it for all kind of people.
And corporations. Well, as you know, I've been to a bunch, and of course for me, first of all, I've been amazed to be standing there with some of the people you bring in. I mean, it's been pretty incredible. I'm like, you know, sometimes, well, again, I've been totally enamored by the whole vision. And again, I love, you've got a cinematographer from Christian Miller to, you know, whoever, Greg Long, Big Waves. I mean, I love the disparity of participants. And I know, again, that's part of your brand, but, you know, most engineers have engineering conferences and doctors have doctor conferences. And, you know, I really sort of love what you're doing. And I can tell you, because I do have a degree in education, and, you know, I've stood at the edge of the stage and watched those kids. And in many cases, some troubled kids, where getting these kids to sit still for 60 seconds, let alone 16 minutes. And I've just seen them, and when they leave, they're talking and they're excited and they're like, well, maybe I could do that, or why don't we do that? And I think one thing we've done together, and what we're trying to do, even with Snotbot, is sort of democratize science.
I love that idea, and I always did. The first moment you came with that idea, I felt that was genius.
Yeah. Well, I think what's
also
interesting.
The idea to not hammer and harpoon out an arrow into these animals, but like catch the snot and analyze. I think that's such a good approach. It's like, I mean, you have done such incredible work with that, and also, like as you said, it's this treasure chest of DNA data, and it's super exciting and very timely, because it's also so efficient when it comes to costs and preparation time,
that's right,
and travel and all.
Yeah, no, I mean, we can talk, I'm sure you've faced this too, but I don't think a lot of kids realize, I mean, I really do have an amazing job, and it's sort of, without going too crazy, sometimes it feels a little bit like Nancy Drew and Indiana Jones. It's not some person in a white lab coat. You're out there on a boat with the largest animals ever existed on the planet, getting intimate details of its life, how it lives and what its future may be. It's been very exciting. But what I also think is exciting, that I hope and I believe that we're doing, often when I've given talks to sort of my peers, I've talked about thinking outside of the box. Because to be blunt, as a scientist, when you come up with a name like Snotbot, you can often be thought to be diminishing science, you know, do you know what I mean? It needs to be sort of intellectual and whatever. And I'm like, scientists, I think, have done the worst job on the planet in fact, you need to start Parley scientists to try to get scientists to understand how to communicate. I mean, because people don't listen to scientists. Now, maybe they are a little bit more now because of COVID-19.
Especially in America, I feel they are way better than for example, in Germany. You know, they're like, it feels that it's inbuilt. And I mean, you are a great communicator. It's just that I think sometimes it's the question of where to actually put the content. You know, where is the right moment to ingest it? Where's the right moment to expose people to it? You know, what's the place? What's the space for it? I think it's not about, in this specific case, not about the projects and everything surrounding it being not attractive. It's super attractive. It has everything. You know, you can technically do it, theoretically do it yourself. It's high tech. It's totally new and fascinating. And it's phenomenal when it comes to the aesthetics. When you shoot these whales from above, I mean, it's just magic to see them like that. And I think now it's just a question of like building an interface to all these kids and all these people out there, and helping them to use these devices, you know, and still make sure that it's standardized when it comes to the technology application, that you're getting the good results back. I think that's what it is. And I think that's a strong story in itself. You know, it's just a question of what are the channels for it, you know, and who are the people that are the best in like participating and sharing it.
Yeah, and again, we keep going back to sharing, and I appreciate that. You know, the one fun thing for me with kids is I've talked to adults about thinking outside of the box with reference to science, you know, because science and ocean science is difficult. As you know, one of my favorite lines is, if you're studying a rhino, it doesn't disappear beneath the Serengeti, throw a bucket of water over you, and then appear 5 miles away. So ocean science is difficult. And I think you're going to have to help me with this, because, you know, you so eloquent say that plastic is a design flaw. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think ocean science has sort of backed itself into a corner where it's totally perceived as being very expensive, very difficult. But when we look,
big expeditions, lots of equipment, and also lots of fossil fuel consumption, you know, which is not really contributing to climate change in the best way.
Exactly. And if we
contributed very well to climate change, which is the problem.
Yeah. But if we now look, you know, but when I talk to kids about thinking outside the box, they sometimes don't understand me, but I think I know why. It's because they already are. They're not confined in a box. And that's why I've loved being at Parley Ocean Schools and seeing kids like thinking and scheming and designing and what can we do, and you know, so yeah, it's an exciting time. I mean, with the technologies that are available to us, I think it's a mistake to think that technology is going to save the world.
Yeah.
But I do think, you know, creative thinking, you know, the whole type of ethic that or ethos that you're putting forward, do you know what I mean? And empowering people to collaborate, go out on their own, be innovative, and change the world for the good. Yeah, man, let's do it.
Perfect. So yeah, for the oceans, I would say.
Yeah. So
and we have a lot to do together. I mean, it's like there's so many expeditions that need to be made the moment we're allowed to kind of walk out of our house again. Yeah.
I mean, there is still a lot to discover. I can't remember. I think it was like 1860. Some scientist said we discovered everything. And again, as we've learned just with the Parley Snotbot, you know, man, there's a lot to do. And again, I'm sorry I keep throwing out the old cliches, but people say, you know, we know more about the surface of the moon than our oceans. To me, that's an opportunity. You know, you and I, we're cup half full. It's like, wow, we don't know anything about the oceans. Let's go. Let's do it, you know?
Let's do it.
So let me ask you just quickly, though, on Parley, you know, clearly there've been some big hurdles. Do you know what I mean? And I don't want to put any sort of negativity on here, but do you want to talk about any hurdles in particular, or any ones that you've achieved, maybe collaborating with governments? I mean, getting, you know, like in the Maldives, you've done such an amazing job.
Yeah, you know, I think everything, hurdles are everywhere. They're just they're just positioned in different ways. And I think in general, there are these three big challenges. One is, can you find the people that share your intention, right? And you have to find them to work with you and your team, but you also have to find them to work with you as a liaison, at an organization like a government or a big corporation or something, or individuals like artists and so. And I think that's a big challenge, you know. And the second one is, make sure that the intentions are the right ones, you know, and that you so work with people that really want to do something, that really want to have an impact, and they're not like doing it primarily for other reasons. You know, there are so many people hopping now on the environmental train that probably have their own agenda, you know, or and that is, I think, very difficult to kind of identify, you know, and ego plays a big role, and I think that's the one thing that I had to give up very early, and I was actually glad to give up on it. It's like, hey, when I come up with an idea, then I can't really own it anymore, you know. It's like, can I own the idea of ocean plastic? Not really. People will copy it, and they will just do their own ocean plastic products. And yes, it took us 5, 6, 7, 8 years to establish it as a trend, but actually it's great if people copy things in general, ideas. It's even better if they improve the ideas that we had, or join and support, you know. But you can't really anymore say, oh, I'm a creator, I'm a designer, I'm an originator, and it's all mine, you know. That's you have to let that go. And then on the other hand, when you collaborate, and you really want to actually learn something from a collaboration, you have to allow other people to guide with their ideas, and you know, and it's like, sometimes it's just not looking as you ever would like it to look, or something. You know. And I think as a creative that is original, always coming from a space where you want to control things, you want to be precise, you have to deliver. That is liberating and scary on both sides, you know. To let go, and to also trust the movement, trust others, and to more or less say, I'm just a part of it. I'm just a little instrument of many, you know. And it's a challenge, but I think that's the beauty of the whole movement. I think. But also the challenge, you know. And then money is always a challenge. You know that, you know, like you would like to have always more. The more money you have, the better people you can win for yourself, or you can buy better, as you in your case, better equipment, or you can have more impact, remove more plastic, or save more whales. And that's fundraising is a big challenge always, you know. And I think we found ways to do that, but it took us also a long time, you know. And we have been very small, and we're still not huge, you know. We're trying to be as efficient as we can with.
Well, no doubt. You know, I've been in this business 30 years, and again, we got to write this down, because I think I've been polite now twice during the course of this conversation, but I think you guys have had an amazing bang for the buck. You know, the millions of people that have listened, learned, pondered, questioned, asked, you know, as we've moved forward, and even, you know, supporting. You've supported quite a range from runners to Doug Aitken to Snotbot. I mean, you know, you've really tried to find the balance, and I'm sure we've all gone down avenues that aren't, they're not dead ends, but they're not the most productive or the most powerful. But again, it's almost back to exploration, and I think Parley has got a good track record of trying to find the balance. And you know, I think we all stub our toes occasionally. Now, I got another difficult question for you, if you don't mind. And I'm challenged by this too, the celebrity issue. You know, I mean, listen, I got Sir Patrick Stewart to help me with our Kickstarter, and we raised 200 grand, you know? I hate to say it, if that had been Dr. Iain Kerr alone, we might have raised 2 grand, and I'll be beating you up, but no. So, I mean, I don't know. Do you want to talk about that context, or we can go on to something
you know,
else?
I think, first of all, I always see creators or inventors, and I like that. And that's, I think that the creator is the most important focus that we have at Parley. And if a creator is a good creator and inspiring, then normally they also have a following. And to be honest, it's not always the biggest following in size that matters. It's I think the credibility and authenticity that someone stands for, you know, and you attract people if you are doing something in a very, I would say, unique way, and in a very personal way, and in a very, I would say, precise or enthusiastic way. And I think that is the most important piece, like how integral and how credible and how inspiring is a creator. And then you work with them, and also how much do they want to support? How passionate are they? You know, and I think that's the situation where we have been lucky to work with good people. But it also takes a lot of time, you know. But there's lots of people like building relationships, forming relationships nonstop, and working on that.
Yeah, we've done a good job there. Well, listen, I'm going to give you, I've only got 26 more questions. No, I got two more questions, and then I'll let you go.
I'm hungry for questions.
Well, I want to circle back on the plastic thing just quickly. You know, are we making progress, do you think? I mean, I think we are, but
yeah, we're making progress. I think we're making progress when it comes to technology, and we're making progress when it comes to understanding in governments, which is new. And we're making progress when it comes to investors, which is also new. I think where we are slow is in the current supply chain that is still running on an old technology. But I see that people want to get out, want to innovate, and they want new materials, you know, and that's I think where the big progress is coming from now, you know, like new tech. And we only get so far away by avoiding plastic and recycling plastic. The big jump, the warp jump will happen with new materials.
Yeah, I mean, I have to admit, I'm a big fan of electric cars. And I think during this particular crisis, I think the sort of oil and coal stocks have gone down and the green stocks have gone up. And let's just hope we can keep rolling with that. Well, I was going to ask you how you manage to get everything done that you do in 24 hours a day, but considering, you know.
I don't.
You don't. Well, there you go. Well, I know how you do it. You nap and Leia does 80% of the work. Is that what it's all about?
And Zoe, our little dog. Yeah, the seal dog.
Well, I know, I can't remember, what's that quote there? Beside every great man is a great woman. I know, and I've got enormous respect for her, and I'm sure she's very proud because, like, New Zealand, led by a woman, doing great. You know, Germany, led by a woman, doing great. So
Parley is led by a lot of women.
Actually. Well, there you go. We're good on it. Well, let me ask you this: do you how about? Is there a key message you'd like to leave us with, or a quote, or a comment, or a thought as we wrap this up?
I think it's time to think abstract and big and conceptual, and say, let's not think about feasibility and pragmatic next steps, but let's think about where do we want to be in the next 5 and 10 years, and then reverse engineer that and say, that's the project management plan that we actually need to make it happen. I think that's the best way to approach it.
You got it. And certainly at my end, I desperately feel, and I probably got this from you, is just do something. You know what I mean? You know, a lot of people don't realize, I mean, in
the strategy, you know, I think that's what we want to provide with air, avoid intercept redesign, because what works for plastic also works for carbon emissions or other technologies or things that are harmful. Let's just have a framework, you know, avoid using the old stuff, intercept the damage, and then redesign the technology. And that has to run parallel, I think, you know, and then you're successful.
I love it. I love it. So we've got to, well, again, I mean, we can't survive without air. So we now need to just take the air model and replicate it as often as we can.
Exactly.
Well, my good friend, thank you very much. I look forward to the next time.
Thanks for having me, Iain.
I look forward to the next time we sort of meet in the physical realm.
Yeah, and exactly where these two guys meet. And
yeah,
I'm
that's right.
And you're the whale.
That's right. That's right. And keep up the good work, my friend. I'm always in total awe.
Me too. I'm full of respect. Big hug.
All right. Thank you. Ciao.